everyone, Miss Truly here. I just thought I'd show you today how I make bread from scratch using my bread machine. So let's get started. We're going to be using regular yeast. You don't have to buy bread machine yeast, and you don't want to certainly buy self-rising flour. Just you want to use regular yeast and all-purpose flour. Now my yeast has been sitting in the refrigerator for, I don't know, years. It's kind of in a dormant state. That's alright, I'm going to wake it up, and then when it wakes up it's going to be hungry, and I'm going to show you what to do. This particular pan makes a 2-pound loaf. Notice I've already got the dough paddle in here, and you want to keep that in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1.5 cups of lukewarm water. So lukewarm is slightly warmer than just warm water. Okay, I've got my warm water in there, and now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of yeast. And the yeast needs to wake up in the warm water, so that's why we've got that going. But this yeast is going to be hungry. It's waking up now. It's been in hibernation, so it wants to eat. Now the thing that yeast wants to eat is sugar. We're going to be adding 3 tablespoons of honey. If you've ever tried to get honey out of a measuring spoon, you'll know it's kind of difficult. You lose more in the spoon. So what you can do is you can just coat the inside of a spoon with a little bit of oil. We're going to be adding oil anyways. And then you put your honey in, and it just comes right out. Okay, we've got that in there now, and I'm just going to stir it around, get that yeast happy and starting to eat. And I'm not really going to let it sit. I just kind of want to stir it up a little bit. There we go. Now to this we are also going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of oil. I'm using safflower oil. You can use whatever oil you like. I don't suggest you use Crisco. Okay, next you're going to want to add about a teaspoon of sea salt. Then the next ingredient is going to be 3.5 cups of flour. Just all-purpose, plain old flour. You don't want to use 100% wheat flour because there's a gluten problem where you're not going to get quite the elasticity of the bread that you want. So use all-purpose flour, and if you want to put some whole wheat flour in there, you can substitute 1/4 of the wheat, or you can substitute 1/4 of the flour with wheat flour, but use it mostly all-purpose flour. Alright, so there we have it. Now I'm just going to put it in the bread machine. That's how simple it is. I'm actually going to be making cinnamon raisin bread, but we're not going to add the cinnamon and the raisins until after the first mix cycle. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in the bread maker. And it's ready to go. And I'm going to set the timing for wheat bread, and I will put it on with a medium crust, which I think is already set to. And we'll just say start. It takes like 3 hours and 20 minutes. And there we go. So it's going to mix for about 10 minutes, and then when it stops, then I'll add some raisins and cinnamon to it. You can see what it's doing in here. Yep, it does everything for you. It needs it. Just does everything. Doesn't look like much yet, but it will look like bread dough in just a few minutes. It's amazing that little paddle can just do everything. Now I was also going to say, if you want to add something fresh, like maybe you want to make an apple bread or you want to make onion bread, if you're going to use fresh onions, remember that the onion has a lot of water content. So you're going to have to cut back a little bit on the water you use in the beginning. because otherwise the onions, fresh onions, will add so much water content to it that your bread's going to collapse, and you don't want that to happen. So just cut back a little bit on the water in the beginning if you're going to add fresh ingredients. Now you don't have to scrape down the sides or anything. It'll take care of everything by itself. You can see how smooth the dough is getting now. You can see the gluten starting to work and make the dough kind of stringy and spongy. Okay, this is done, and the dough is nice and smooth and slightly tacky. So now we're going to add in our other ingredients. Now some will say wait till it tells you to add them in, but on the second mix cycle, but the problem is that I find that it doesn't give you enough time to mix everything thoroughly. So I just add it in as soon as the first mix cycle is done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of cinnamon and 1 cup of raisins. That seems like a lot of cinnamon, but I like a lot of cinnamon in my cinnamon raisin bread. So 1, and there we go. We'll just close it up. It's not going to do anything for a few minutes because the dough is just resting. Okay, it started its second mix cycle. As you can see, it's just moving around, mixing everything up in there. It's going to be gorgeous. This got to mix for a while. Kind of disgusting right at the moment, but honestly, if you left this until the very end of this mix cycle when it beeps and tells you to add in your other ingredients, it'll never get mixed in well. So just do it at the beginning of the second mix cycle. Oh, it's going to be gorgeous and yummy. Okay, well you can see just how lovely the color of the bread dough is now. And it's a lovely shade of brown, which is great. That means all the cinnamon's incorporated. And now we're just going to leave it alone to do its thing. So, in about 2 hours and 40 minutes, we'll be done. Okay, it's time to turn this thing off. And we can see there's a beautiful loaf of cinnamon raisin bread. Now I am going to change what I said earlier about a cup of raisins because I was very concerned this wasn't going to rise up. So just put in like a half a cup because I think I put in too much and weighted it down. So I'm going to take it out and I will show it to you in just a moment. Okay, it's not quite as tall as I would like it to be, but that's because, like I said, I think I weighted it down with too many raisins. So too much of a good thing is not necessarily a good thing. Okay, just sliced the bread. Always slice your bread with a serrated knife. And I'm going to open it up. All the steam's going to come out. Come on. There we go. You can see the beautiful texture of the bread. It's very dark. Very dark. Probably put in a little too much cinnamon, but it's very delicious, I'm sure. So, there you have it. It's lovely. Woohoo! Now I'll close it back up so it doesn't dry out. Okay, close up. Thank you. And you should always cut your bread when it's cooler, but I wanted to show you it's still very, very hot right now, which is nice actually because my hands are freezing. Okay, so that's how we make our bread, and I hope that was helpful to you. And I'll try to show you another bread making video later on. Maybe not today, but one where it comes out a little bit fluffier. So, talk to you soon. Bye-bye!